Warning! Kinda Murdery contains adult themes, explicit language, and descriptions of violence. It is not suitable for anyone, and we recommend you stop listening now.
True crime with a dash of the paranormal, the garish, the strange, and the darkly comic. I'm Zevon Odelberg, host of Kinda Murdery, a podcast that's about more than just murder. It's my very own pocket dimension, home to a curated collection of bizarre and compelling stories, the unsolved, the unsettling, and the unbelievable. I cover it all, just so long as it's kinda murdery. Those are facts, folks. Just like it says in the intro, I am Zevon Odelberg, and this is Kinda Murdery. Well, it's still October, and that means I'm bringing you another Halloween murder story. And so, if you're ready, please join me as we uncover what truths we can and solve what mysteries we may. Kinda Murderies, 38 in a brown paper bag. The Halloween murder of Peter Fabiano starts now. On Halloween, when the streets are filled with laughter, children in costumes, and an air of festivity, one might least expect the grim cloak of death to descend upon them. But for Angelenos, citizens of Los Angeles in 1957, the story would be different, darker, more violent. You see, the city would forever remember that Halloween not for joyous memories and delicious candies, but for the haunting tale of Peter Fabiano. Peter wasn't just another name in the sprawling city of LA, he was a man of repute, a successful salon owner who had carved out a niche for himself in the bustling world of beauty and fashion. A man who by many accounts had everything going for him, and yet, as the orange hues of the setting sun gave way to the creeping darkness of Halloween night, fate had a different, a more sinister plan in store for Peter Fabiano. As the city prepared to welcome trick-or-treaters, little did it know that the evening would be marked by a tragedy that would send shockwaves across the community. A life taken too soon, a family shattered, and a city left grappling with the haunting realization that behind the masks of celebration, there can lurk shadows of the unthinkable. Peter's demise wasn't just a singular event of tragedy. It was a reflection of the vulnerability we all share regardless of our status or success. As news of his death spread, Los Angeles was reminded that life's fragility isn't selective. The city's veneer of invulnerability was pierced, leaving its residents to grapple with a chilling question. If something so horrific could happen to someone like Peter Fabiano, then who? Who is truly safe? This is more than just a crime story. It's a grim reminder of the unpredictable nature of life, where joy and tragedy are two sides of the same coin. In a world where the unexpected lurks around every corner, perhaps the most significant takeaway is cherish every moment. Stop, smell the roses, hug a loved one, for we never truly know which moment might be our last. In 1923, in the heart of Los Angeles, Peter Fabiano was born. Growing up in a time of change and challenge, Peter emerged as a man with an indomitable spirit and an unyielding commitment to his family. The trials of World War II tested his mettle, but like many of his generation, the generation we call the greatest generation, he returned home with a resolve to build a better future for those he loved. Together with his devoted wife Betty, they embarked on a journey that would see them at the helm of not one but two beauty salons. Their establishments weren't just businesses, they were centers of the community, places where the essence of Los Angeles converged and where the dreams and desires of its inhabitants found expression, sometimes through a new hairstyle or an intimate conversation. The Fabianos, with their professional acumen and warmth, became a beacon in the community. They weren't merely service providers, they were pillars upon which many relied for both their expertise and their heart. The narrative of their life read like a golden chapter from the American dream, a post-war vision of prosperity, community, and familial bliss. The 1950s were a period of peace and growth for the Fabianos. But as the decade rolled on, a shadow loomed large on the horizon. For beneath the idyllic veneer of suburban life, there often lie secrets and complexities. And for the Fabianos, this truth would manifest in the most harrowing way on Halloween night, 1957. A day which should have been filled with the innocent fun of children and the joy of community turned into a nightmarish reality. The events of that evening would shatter the facade of perfection and serve as a spine-tingling reminder. No matter how serene life may appear on the surface, vulnerabilities and threats can lurk in the least expected places. In a society often focused on the outward appearance of success and happiness, the Fabiano story forces us to confront the deeper, often hidden facets of human existence. The juxtaposition of the Fabiano's commendable contributions and the tragic events of that Halloween night makes us ponder the unpredictability of life and the fragility of the constructs we so dearly hold on to. As the clock's hands hovered about an hour from midnight, the Fabiano household was settling into a quiet repose. The hustle and bustle of Halloween had subsided, with carved pumpkins softly glowing on doorsteps and the distant laughter of trick-or-treaters fading into the night. In a residential neighborhood like theirs, the festivities usually wrapped up well before midnight. Peter and Betty Fabiano could never have anticipated the impending interruption to their serene evening. The unexpected chime of the doorbell echoed through their home just after 11 p.m. It was an unusually late hour for any visitor, let alone trick-or-treaters. With the typical nonchalance of a homeowner expecting nothing more than perhaps a few children squeezing in one last quest for candy, Peter descended the staircase to answer the door. The quiet ambiance of the night, punctuated by far-off sounds of Halloween fun and mischief, was about to be disrupted in the most unimaginable way. The late doorbell ring, which, under any other circumstance, would be just a footnote in the evening's events, was now poised to change the Fabiano family's life forever. As Peter Fabiano opened the door, the dim light from the porch revealed a figure that seemed out of place. Standing before him was not a cheerful group of children or jovial teenagers. Instead, a lone figure clad in jeans and wearing a nondescript, inexpensive mask stood ominously. The person's disguise was eerily offset by a brown paper bag they clutched, an item that, on any other Halloween night, would have been filled with candy. However, this was no ordinary trick-or-treater, and it wasn't candy in the bag. Before Peter could fully register the situation or react, the brown paper bag was swiftly thrust forward, revealing its sinister contents. From within the folds of the bag, the cold, metallic glint of a .38 caliber pistol emerged. Without hesitation, the masked figure fired, the gunshot echoing through the silent night, hitting Peter at point-blank range. The very foundation of the Fabiano home shook with this sudden act of violence. The tranquility of the evening was irrevocably shattered. The assailant, having achieved their grim, murderous objective, fled into the darkness, leaving behind a scene of chaos and despair. The once lively, joyous Halloween night in the Fabiano household was replaced by shock and grief. Despite efforts to save him, Peter's injuries were too grave, and he succumbed to them shortly thereafter. The heart of a family was torn apart, and the community was left grappling with the horror of a night that began in celebration, but ended in tragedy. In the wake of such a heinous crime, the Los Angeles Police Department found themselves in an almost impenetrable fog of mystery. With Peter Fabiano being a well-respected businessman and community member, there seemed no obvious reason for anyone to wish harm upon him. The streets of Los Angeles whispered with hushed conversations, pondering the motive behind the cruel act. Every lead felt like a dead end. The question of why loomed large. However, when the police shifted their focus from the professional realm to the personal lives of the Fabianos, they began to uncover a web of relationships far more intricate than anyone might have suspected. The waters of this mystery deepened with the introduction of Joan Rabel into the narrative. Joan, with her freelance writer and photographer credentials, painted a picture of an independent spirit, someone who moved within different circles of the city. But it was her close association with Betty Fabiano that added layers to the investigation. Their bond wasn't just that of casual friends. It was an intense connection, one that had grown to the point where it started to wedge itself between Betty and Peter. As investigators delved deeper, they unearthed a revelation that added a new dimension to their inquiries. Betty had at one point chosen to walk away from the life she built with Peter to live with Joan, and this departure wasn't a fleeting one, underscoring the depth of the relationship between the two women. There were those who whispered that Joan and Betty were in fact lovers. The return of Betty to the Fabiano household might have signaled a reconciliation with Peter on the surface, but it also begged the question, what currents ran beneath the facade of their reunion? Was it a genuine attempt to mend fences, Or were there lingering resentments and unspoken emotions, as there almost always are? With the revelation about Joan and Betty's relationship, the focus of the police investigation began to shift, and detectives found themselves unraveling a tale of passion, tension, and personal complexities. It was a case riddled with twists and turns, and finally, the discovery of the murder weapon, the .38 caliber revolver used to shoot Peter, was like the first ray of dawn after a long, dark night. Found tucked away amidst the mundane belongings of a department store locker was a gun, the same .38 special revolver that, holstered in a brown paper bag, had been used to shoot Peter Fabiano. The gun was traced, and police were bewildered by its owner's connection, or rather lack thereof, to the Fabianos. The gun belonged to Goldine Pizer, and Goldine was just one more mystery in an ever-thickening plot. On the surface, she had no discernible ties to the Fabianos, so why would a woman seemingly unrelated to the victim possess a weapon so essentially, intrinsically linked to the crime? In a stroke of good fortune for Los Angeles police detectives, the wall of silence and mystery surrounding Pizer soon crumbled. Confronted by the weight of evidence and the intense scrutiny of investigators, Pizer unraveled a confession that sent shockwaves through the city. The strings of this crime, it appeared, were being pulled from behind the scenes by none other than Joan Rabel. Joan had painted a sinister portrait of Peter Fabiano, depicting him as a malevolent force in Betty's life. Whether her allegations held any water or were mere fabrications remained to be seen. But what was undeniable was Joan's ability to manipulate Pizer, exploiting her infatuation and warping her sense of right and wrong. Pizer, caught in a whirlwind of emotions and Joan's persuasive rhetoric, had been transformed from an unsuspecting individual into the perpetrator of a heinous murder. Pizer's revelations unveiled a more intricate and dark tapestry of relationships, manipulation, and passions. The crime was no longer a simple act of violence. It was the culmination of a series of events and emotions manipulated by a master puppeteer. With the irrefutable evidence and confessions in hand, the law swiftly closed in on Joan Rabel and Goldine Pizer, charging them with the grave crime of first-degree murder. Facing the consequences of their actions, the two women presented a study in contrast. Goldine Pizer's behavior in the aftermath of her arrest was that of a person racked with guilt and regret. Her statements made it abundantly clear. She'd been a pawn, swayed by the machinations of a more dominant personality. Her remorse, genuine and palpable, showed a woman who deeply regretted being drawn into a world of deceit and violence. On the other hand, Joan Rabel's stoic silence spoke volumes. Her refusal to speak, to defend herself or explain her actions, added a layer of mystery and intrigue to this already convoluted tale. Her silence left many questions unanswered, and her motivations, real or perceived, would forever remain a matter of speculation. Both women received life sentences for their roles in Peter's murder. But as time went on, the stringent walls of prison eventually gave way, and both were granted their freedom. Goldine's life post-prison came to a close in 1998 in Los Angeles. Joan, however, left behind a mystery. Her release from prison was followed by an eerie silence. Her subsequent whereabouts were unknown. The Vanishing Act was almost theatrical. A final, enigmatic curtain call in a life filled with shadow and intrigue. Amidst the chaos and tragedy, Betty Fabiano sought to rebuild her life. Selling the beauty salon, perhaps to distance herself from painful memories, she sought solace in a fresh start. In 1966, love once again graced her life, leading her to remarry. Betty's resilience and ability to find love and peace after such a traumatic period were a testament to her personal strength. She lived out her days until 1999, passing away at the age of 81, leaving behind a legacy of endurance and hope in the face of overwhelming adversity. In a city synonymous with glitz, glamour, and the allure of Hollywood, the brutal murder of Peter Fabiano stands as a grim reminder that truth can, at times, be far more chilling than cinematic fiction. While Los Angeles has been the backdrop to countless tales of mystery and intrigue, the haunting narrative of that fateful Halloween night in 1957 remains deeply etched in the city's collective memory. Decades have passed since Peter was killed, and yet his story remains as captivating as ever, drawing true crime enthusiasts like us into its web of all too human mystery, emotion, and violence. The story, punctuated by passionate liaisons, alleged love triangles, and dark manipulations, underscores just how complicated human relationships can be, and the lengths to which romantic obsessions and twisted affections can push individuals. The law enforcement community, despite its best efforts, was left grappling with the eternal question of why. Motive, the cornerstone of any crime investigation, remained elusive. The swirling rumors, fueled by whispers of Rabel's unrequited love for Betty and her possible jealousy of Peter, painted a picture of a crime of passion. But these remain speculations, shadows on the wall of a story filled with more questions than answers. Joan Rabel's steadfast silence and Betty's decision to remain reticent add layers of ambiguity to an already convoluted tale. The Halloween night tragedy of Peter Fabiano's murder, at its core, serves as a stark reflection on the unpredictable depths of human emotions and how we behave confronted with the loss, or maybe just restricted access, to the people we care about most. It's a testament to the fact that beneath the surface of everyday life, under the veneer of normalcy, there exists currents of passion, jealousy, and yes, malice. The Fabiano case is not just a crime story, but a poignant commentary on the intricacies of the human heart and the potential consequences of unchecked desires. As the story of Los Angeles continues to be written, the Peter Fabiano murder will forever be a haunting chapter, a tale that reminds us of the duality of love and obsession, of the fragility of trust, and of the sometimes thin, oh so thin line that separates devotion from destruction. I'm Zevon Odelberg, and this has been Kinda Murdery.